Thursday night in 2018. In the quiet town of Maple Falls, Claire Matthews stepped into a rideshare and was never seen again. No screams, no struggle, no trace, just silence. What happened that night has haunted this small community ever since. And what investigators would uncover in the weeks that followed would shatter their sense of safety forever. Claire Matthews was the kind of person everyone loved. At 29 years old, she had built a life rooted in care, community, and quiet strength. As a registered nurse at Maple Falls General Hospital, she worked grueling 12-hour shifts in the ER, always showing up with a warm smile and an even warmer heart. Her friends often joked that Claire had the patience of a saint, and in many ways they were right. Born and raised in Maple Falls, a sleepy town tucked into the northern part of Oregon with a population just under 10,000, Claire knew nearly every face in town. She'd gone to high school there, helped at the town's summer health fairs, and even cared for her former teachers in the ER. She was rooted and proud of it. Claire lived alone in a modest two-bedroom cottage on Willow Creek Lane, a quiet road flanked by tall pine trees and occasional deer crossings. She had a cat named Baxter and a daily ritual of making French press coffee at 6 a.m. sharp. Her routine was as predictable as it was comforting to those who knew her. But beneath the calm exterior, Claire had recently been navigating a storm. In the spring of 2018, just months before her disappearance, Claire ended a toxic relationship with a man named Jason Hill. He was older, 38, and came from out of town. They met through a mutual friend at a wine tasting event, and while things seemed fine at first, friends said the relationship quickly became possessive. Jason had a temper. There were subtle signs. The way Claire shrank into herself when his name came up, how she slowly stopped showing up to Friday trivia nights, how she once had a bruised wrist she claimed was from bumping into the kitchen counter. By the summer, Claire had finally cut ties. She changed her number, blocked him on social media, and even had her locks changed. But in a town as small as Maple Falls, vanishing from someone's orbit wasn't so simple. That brings us to Thursday, September 13th, 2018, the night everything changed. Claire had just wrapped her shift at the hospital. According to her colleagues, it had been an unusually busy evening, with a multi-car accident bringing in 4 trauma patients around 7 p.m. Claire stayed calm under pressure. As always, one nurse said she was laughing with a colleague around 9:45 p.m., relieved to finally clock out. Her plan that night was simple: head home, shower, and maybe catch up on the latest episode of Big Little Lies. She texted her best friend, Emily Watson, just before 10 p.m. Done with shift. Brain is fried. Heading home. Talk tomorrow, red heart. But Claire didn't drive that night. Her car had been in the shop for 2 days due to a faulty alternator. Instead of hitching a ride with a colleague, she ordered a rideshare through a popular app. It was something she'd done before. Routine. Unremarkable. Security footage from the hospital's rear entrance shows Claire stepping outside at 10:12 p.m. She's wearing her navy blue scrubs and a gray raincoat. The weather had turned stormy that evening. She pulled the hood over her head and glanced at her phone, likely checking the ETA. At 10:15 p.m., a dark-colored sedan pulled into the lot. Claire walked over. She opened the back door. She got in, and that was the last time anyone ever saw her. When Claire didn't show up to her shift the next morning, it was unusual, but not cause for alarm. Nurses get sick. They sleep through alarms. But when she didn't answer her phone, didn't respond to texts, and didn't even post her usual coffee, stat, selfie, concerns started to grow. By noon, her supervisor called Emily, her emergency contact. By 3 p.m., Emily was knocking on Claire's door. By 5 p.m., Claire Matthews was officially reported missing, and that was when the real nightmare began. At first, it looked like a case of poor communication, a missed alarm, a day off forgotten. But within 24 hours, the town of Maple Falls realized something was terribly wrong. Claire Matthews had vanished, and nobody vanishes in Maple Falls. When Claire was officially reported missing, Detective Laura Simmons was the first to take the case. She had been with the Maple Falls Police Department for over 15 years and had a reputation for being both methodical and relentless. A missing adult in their late 20s wasn't, by definition, a high-alert case. Adults have the right to disappear, but something about Claire's case felt different to Simmons from the start. She was dependable, Simmons would later say in an interview. Everyone said the same thing. If Claire didn't show up, something was wrong. The initial search began close to home. Emily let officers into Claire's cottage the same evening the report was filed. Everything looked untouched. The French press was clean and unused. The bed made. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. Baxter, her cat, hadn't been fed. Claire hadn't made it home. Detective Simmons pulled security footage from the hospital, confirming Claire's exit.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
At 10:12 p.m., an entry into a dark-colored sedan just 3 minutes later. There were no visible license plates, no dashcam footage from surrounding areas. The ride, according to Claire's rideshare app, was never officially registered, and that's where the case took its first disturbing turn. The ride Claire had supposedly ordered? It didn't exist in the company's database. According to the company, no driver had accepted a request from her account that night. No trip was logged. No payment processed. It was as if the car that picked her up had come from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. The next question was obvious. Who was driving that car? That night, police canvassed the area, asking anyone near the hospital if they saw anything suspicious. One custodian, closing a diner 2 blocks down, mentioned seeing a car matching the description idling near the emergency entrance. He didn't see the driver, but he remembered something odd. The car didn't have the company logo sticker most rideshare vehicles display. Investigators now had a terrifying theory. Someone had posed as a rideshare driver to lure Claire into their vehicle. Word spread like wildfire. Maple Falls went from a sleepy town to a nervous wreck. Local women began avoiding rideshares altogether. Parents escorted their kids to evening shifts. And then the media arrived. The Oregon Chronicle ran the headline, "Nurse vanishes after fake ride. Is a predator on the loose?" But days passed, then a week, then 2. No body, no ransom, no trace. The investigation team expanded their search radius to 50 miles. Claire's phone had last pinged near a stretch of highway known as Route 9, just 15 minutes outside town. It was a mostly wooded area, a favorite of hikers in the fall. On October 4th, 2018, 3 weeks after Claire disappeared, a breakthrough finally came. A man walking his dog along a forested path near Shadow Ridge Park noticed something unusual at the base of a dry creek bed. A torn piece of gray fabric tangled in a thorn bush. Curious, he pulled at it and found it was attached to a raincoat. Inside the pocket was a hospital ID badge. Claire Matthews. The area was immediately sealed off. Cadaver dogs were brought in, and by sunset, they had found a shallow grave about 40 feet from the trail. It had been hastily dug, covered with pine needles, and inside were human remains. Claire's body was found curled in a fetal position, partially clothed, with ligature marks around her wrists and ankles. Her cause of death, as confirmed later by the medical examiner, was strangulation. She had been dead for days, likely killed the same night she disappeared. The town of Maple Falls went into mourning. A candlelight vigil was held in front of the hospital. Hundreds gathered. Nurses wore black armbands. Emily gave a tearful tribute, saying, "Claire deserved more than this. She deserved peace. She deserved to feel safe." But while the town mourned, Detective Simmons shifted into overdrive. Now, it was a murder investigation. The real question remained: who killed Claire Matthews? Suspicion quickly circled back to Jason Hill, the ex-boyfriend. According to multiple friends, Jason had not taken the breakup well. He had shown up uninvited to her workplace once. Another time, he had left a bouquet of roses on her porch with a note that read, "You can't avoid me forever." Jason claimed to have an alibi that night. He said he was at home watching a basketball game. But when pressed, he couldn't provide a clear record of his location between 9:30 p.m. and midnight. The tension tightened when police searched his apartment. In his garage, they found a set of disposable gloves, a roll of duct tape, and a burner phone. On that phone, detectives recovered deleted text messages. Messages sent to Claire just days before her death. One read, "I'll see you again, whether you like it or not." Still, there was no direct evidence placing Jason at the scene. No fingerprints on Claire's coat. No DNA in the car that picked her up, because the car itself was still missing. What they needed was a vehicle, and soon they'd get it. With Claire's body found and a community in mourning, detectives believed they had their prime suspect, Jason Hill, the ex-boyfriend with motive, history, and no airtight alibi. But the truth, as it turned out, wasn't that simple. The case was about to veer off the road they thought they were on. And it all started with one camera. While Jason Hill remained under intense scrutiny, Detective Simmons wasn't satisfied. His behavior was erratic, yes. His past relationship with Claire was clearly toxic. But there was something that didn't add up. Jason didn't match witness reports. Multiple people had mentioned seeing a dark-colored vehicle, possibly a 2012 to 2014 model Toyota Camry, near the hospital parking lot the night Claire disappeared. Jason, meanwhile, drove a white Dodge pickup, loud, lifted, and hard to miss. No one had reported seeing it. So Simmons did what she always did, went back to the map. She requested access to every available traffic camera and surveillance feed within a 10-mile radius of the hospital and the location where Claire's body was found. Most yielded nothing. But then, one clip from a gas station 2 miles west of the hospital, timestamped 10:27 p.m., showed a match. A dark Camry pulling into the lot. A male figure stepped out. He wasn't tall, maybe 5 feet 8 inches. Slim, baseball cap pulled low, gloves. He walked inside, bought a single bottle of water, and paid in cash. And then, here's what made Simmons pause. He turned slightly toward the camera as he walked out. The image was grainy, but it was enough. This wasn't Jason Hill. It was someone else. And he looked familiar. Within 24 hours, facial recognition tech linked the image to a local rideshare driver named Evan Brooks, 32 years old. No criminal record. Quiet. Lived alone. Worked part-time as a rideshare and delivery driver while attending community college. No one had mentioned him in connection with Claire. He had no connection to the hospital, no known link to the victim. But something about his driving history disturbed Simmons. Brooks' rideshare app profile showed dozens of completed trips, but when compared to the rideshare company's master logs, 4 of them didn't exist in the official system. Ghost rides. No passenger logs. No receipts. He had learned to manipulate the app, running off-the-record pickups to avoid suspicion. Detectives quickly obtained a warrant to search his home. Inside Evan Brooks' modest 1-bedroom rental on Birch Hill Drive, they found what they feared: a hard drive containing folders named by initials. One was marked CM. The folder held screen recordings, evidence he had been watching Claire for weeks, stalking her social media, logging her shift times. One file was a screen-recorded clip from a month prior, showing Claire's Instagram story at the hospital, with Brooks whispering in the background, "You always look so tired. Claire, you need rest. I'll help." The man who had picked up Claire Matthews that night wasn't her ex. He was a stranger, predator, a ghost in plain sight. But that wasn't the most chilling part. In the basement, beneath a false wall in the laundry room, they found a trunk. Inside were personal belongings from multiple women: scarves, earrings, a worn journal, and photographs, some printed, some Polaroids, some clearly taken without consent, from bushes, parking lots, hospital exits. Claire's raincoat was there too. The Camry was found a few blocks away, in an abandoned shed Evan had rented under a fake name. Inside, they located fibers matching Claire's clothing, and a single strand of her hair embedded in the seatbelt. Evan Brooks was arrested on October 12, 2018, charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and unlawful disposal of human remains. But the mystery wasn't over. Under questioning, Brooks gave away little. He spoke in disjointed phrases, often smiling at odd moments. He claimed Claire had looked at him like she knew him, He described her final moments with detached clarity, as if narrating a scene from a movie. But when asked why, he only said one thing: she was too kind. People like that don't last in this world. The confession chilled the room. Evan Brooks wasn't someone you noticed. That's what made him dangerous. He didn't scream, didn't rage, didn't chase. He watched, he studied, he waited, and in a single rainy night he struck. Not for money, not for revenge, but for control. The town of Maple Falls had thought the monster was someone they knew, the angry ex-boyfriend, the outsider. But the truth was darker. The killer was the man who handed you your coffee, drove your groceries, or picked you up after work. He blended in perfectly, until he didn't. The arrest of Evan Brooks shocked Maple Falls, but the revelation of what he had done, and how carefully he planned it, would send waves of fear far beyond the town's borders. Claire Matthews was gone, but her name would not fade quietly. The trial of Evan Brooks would expose more than a killer. It would reveal a hidden darkness, lurking in plain sight. The trial of Evan Brooks began on March 4, 2019, nearly 6 months after his arrest. The courthouse was overflowing with reporters, grieving community members, and legal observers drawn to the case's chilling complexity. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Lauren Phelps, opened with a powerful statement. This is not just the story of a murder. This is the story of a man who studied his victim, who learned her routine, her fears, her kindness, and used all of it to end her life. Claire Matthews didn't just get into the wrong car. She was hunted. Over the following weeks, the court would hear disturbing testimony and forensic evidence. Digital forensics experts detailed how Brooks had manipulated the rideshare app to create spoofed pickup confirmations, intercepting real requests and appearing legitimate. Detective Simmons testified about the hard drive contents, the stalking logs, and the chilling voice recordings found in Brooks' home. Friends and co-workers shared emotional stories about Claire, her compassion, her selflessness, her dream of opening a children's clinic someday. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from a surprise witness, a former college classmate of Brooks. She testified that, 2 years earlier, she had filed a restraining order after Evan followed her home several times and left unwanted notes under her car windshield. The order was temporary and eventually dismissed, but it painted a picture of a man with a pattern. He never yelled, she said. He just watched. That was worse. The defense attempted to plead diminished responsibility, arguing that Brooks suffered from untreated mental illness and had experienced childhood trauma that warped his view of relationships. They portrayed him as a loner, emotionally stunted, incapable of forming normal attachments. But the jury didn't buy it. Too much had been planned, too many details orchestrated. On April 16, 2019, after just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and criminal impersonation. During sentencing, Claire's father, Robert Matthews, stood to speak. He said only this: "You took her from us, but you'll never take who she was. And you'll never take the way this town will remember her." Evan Brooks was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. After the verdict, Maple Falls changed. Claire's former hospital renamed its family waiting room the Claire Matthews Healing Room. A mural was painted in the hallway, soft blues and purples, with her favorite quote written beneath: "In a world where you can be anything, be kind." A grassroots nonprofit was launched in her honor. Claire's Ride Home, a volunteer-based safety escort service that offered late-night transportation to women working night shifts, students leaving libraries, and anyone who felt unsafe. Even at the state level, the case prompted legislative action. In September 2019, Oregon passed the Claire's Law Initiative, requiring all rideshare drivers to display a scannable digital verification code before passengers enter the vehicle. The law would go on to be adopted by multiple neighboring states. Emily, Claire's best friend, became an advocate for women's safety. In a 2020 interview, she said, "We always tell people to look for the red flags, but Claire never saw one because there weren't any. He was invisible until it was too late. That's why we have to build systems that don't rely on victims to protect themselves. It's not just about pepper spray. It's about prevention, policy, and accountability. Though justice was served, the emotional scars ran deep. Detective Simmons, now promoted to chief investigator, said that Claire's case changed the way she viewed missing persons forever. She implemented new guidelines within the department for faster response windows and prioritized community reporting channels for suspicious activity, no matter how small it seemed. And yet, the haunting remains. Every year on the anniversary of Claire's disappearance, townspeople gather on the hospital lawn and light candles in her memory. A bell rings at exactly 10:15 p.m., the time she stepped into that car. That sound, Emily says, isn't just for Claire. It's for every woman who's been followed, every person who didn't make it home, and every voice that still needs to be heard. Claire Matthews was not famous. She wasn't rich. She didn't lead a dangerous life. She was a nurse, a daughter, a friend, and like so many others, she simply trusted the world to be what it said it was. But one night, that world failed her. And what her story reminds us is this. In a world full of masks, not every monster looks like one. And sometimes, the most dangerous ones look just like your ride home. Evan Brooks is serving life in Oregon State Penitentiary. The town of Maple Falls has moved forward, but not on. Because some stories, even when solved, never truly end. They echo. The case of Claire Matthews closed with a conviction, a verdict, and a sentence, but not with peace. Not really. Questions still linger. They always do. Why Claire? Why that night? Was she truly the first, or just the first they found? Detective Simmons herself admitted in a 2021 interview that there were threads they couldn't pull tight. Among the items found in Brooks' hidden trunk were possessions that couldn't be matched to any known victim. A single earring, a lock of dyed red hair, a matchbook from a truck stop 4 towns over. No known missing persons case tied to them. And that's the darkest part of stories like this. What's unsaid? What's never solved? The court said justice was served, said one Maple Falls resident. But it still feels like Claire was taken from us while the world wasn't looking. That stays with you. Claire Matthews' story has now been featured in multiple documentaries and true crime specials. Her name is spoken in classrooms, law seminars, and advocacy workshops. She has become more than a victim. She has become a symbol. And yet, for those who knew her, she remains a person. Not a headline, not a case file. A daughter who once laughed so hard at a dinner table she spilled her wine. A nurse who sang off-key to patients just to see them smile. A woman who had plans to travel, to adopt a dog, to maybe fall in love again. Emily still visits Claire's cottage once a month. Baxter, the cat, now lives with her. He always perks up when Emily arrives, as if expecting his real owner to come through the door. I don't think we ever stop grieving, Emily said quietly. We just learn to live around the hole. Claire was light, and when light goes out, the room changes. Forever. The murder of Claire Matthews raised serious questions about rideshare safety, app regulation, and digital accountability. It also spotlighted the illusion of security that many people live with. The belief that as long as we follow the rules, we're safe. That if we're kind, we'll be protected. That monsters wear masks. But as Claire's case proved, not all monsters do. Some wear seatbelts, smile gently, say your name, and wait. We tell these stories because they matter. Not for shock, not for clicks, but to remind us of the people behind the headlines and the warning signs buried in the silence. Claire Matthews was loved. She was missed, and because we remember her, her story didn't end in those woods. Continues in legislation, in conversations, in the way a woman checks her driver's plate before getting in the pause we now take before trusting the familiar, in every voice that refuses to be silenced again. And maybe, just maybe, that's how justice lives on. Not in punishment, but in prevention, in memory, in change. In stories told and never forgotten.